I kind of want to, before we get into the main topic, I kind of want to do my secret topic and bring it up a little bit.
Let's just make that the main topic.
We might, because I'm a lot more interested in that right now. I do this thing where I get on kicks, something will grab my attention, and then that's like my number one interest for that time period or whatever. And this one's your fault, because last episode we were talking about, I said I wanted to do like game translation. I wanted to try that out. And you said, oh, you should do a Medabots game. So then I've been looking into it, and now that's kind of what I want to do. I want to work on scanlating or whatever, a Medabots game.
Are there any that are not I know there's
like 5 Game Boy RPGs, like Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and then there's like 4 or 5 3DS ones as well.
Yeah, you should do one of those. I think that would be cooler.
I don't know which one would be easier tools wise, because you have to do like a lot of hacking, and that's a lot to learn.
Yeah, but it might even be like already pre-made, and there might, like, if you just look at like translation patches or some type of software to do that, there might be easy like formulaic guides to do it.
Yeah, to an extent, but every game requires a lot of specific hacking. And there is, however, a group that I guess they've disbanded or something. They haven't posted in a year or two, but they did most of the first Game Boy game. It's completely translated, and it's mostly hacked, as I understand it.
You could always finish that up, but...
Well, I wouldn't want to snipe them, even if they're disbanded. Also, the first game's terrible, because as part of my research, I played some of the first one and some of the third one, and the first one is really, really rough around the edges. But the third one's really cool, so that's what I might look into. There's also the 3DS one that we talked about, where you play with all the girls, and when you beat them, their clothes get ripped.
I was super excited for that one, because it's also like a custom Robo Little Battlers, like 3D fighting sim, and it's like, that's my favorite type of gameplay for Medabots. But when we look through a Let's Play, it looks like there's no overworld or anything, and I really, really like an overworld with that type of thing. Like Little Battlers has that, even though there's so much freaking... I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast, but...
I think we did.
Yeah, but there's too much dialogue in many of these games, and especially the ones that are, I don't want to say children's games, but the younger demographic ones like Little Battlers and Pokemon and stuff. It's like, wow. You know, Pokemon Red and Blue didn't have this, and I figured out how to do it. Like, you don't need all this explanation. I don't need all this story. Like, let me play the game a little bit before you give me the story. I don't want to do like, Kingdom Hearts is, like, awful and notorious for this. Kingdom Hearts 2. It's a 4-hour tutorial, basically, is before you even start the game.
That one does have narrative parts to it, though.
But it's awful. I'm not a game theory guy, but you need to be able, when you start a game, to get hooked on the actual gameplay very soon. The tutorial needs to be starts you in a battle or something where you can, like, I don't want to do 4 hours of talking to Professor Oak before I can even get into a Pokemon battle. Like, I understand the narrative reason for that, but I want to get into some of the gameplay to see if I'm even gonna like it. I mean, I don't want to do this big expository narrative type of thing, because I'm not. They want you to get invested in the characters, but the best way to do that is not with a bunch of text and cutscenes. For me, it's like, let me play the game a little bit, and I'm like, oh, this is a cool kind of power that they're using. Like, maybe I'll learn more about this character after the fact. Get me hooked on the gameplay first, but it's kind of a diversion. Anyway, there's no overworld in the Girls' Generation Medabots, but I think there is.
Girls' Mission, I think it's actually called.
Well, that's the other game. I think there is an overworld on the mainline series of Medabots, but it doesn't have the custom Robo fighting. It has like an RPG style, which is pretty sweet, because I remember the Game Boy Advance Medabots game that I played. I even just replayed it a couple years ago, and it holds up really well. It's super hard. It's very hard.
Yeah, it is, and that's a remake of the second Game Boy one.
See, so I didn't know that until just recently.
That's why, in terms of, if I look further into actually, translating one of these, I think I would go with number 3. Number 1 is too crazy. It's too, I don't know, difficult to get into. Like, the gameplay is really rough, and, the whole thing is just like a beta, basically, it feels like. Then 2 is the GBA one, which has an official release in English. And then 3 is the sequel.
So I would definitely recommend to any passengers that have ever watched Medabots as a kid or are interested in a cool type of RPG where you can, I mean, we all probably know what Medabots is, but they're little robots that you teach to fight, kind of like Pokemon, but like you can mix and match their parts. Like you can give them a gun arm or a sword arm, maybe their legs, maybe they have like tractor legs or wheels or something, and it's just so cool. They fight. It's fun stuff. I would definitely recommend go find an emulator or pick up on eBay the old Game Boy Advance Medabots game. It's so cool, but it's an old style game in the sense that it's very unforgiving. You can miss. You have to win parts from your enemies. Let's say you only have so many chances to get a certain part. And if you miss it by just pure luck, you miss it and you don't get it again. And it's like, I wanted to collect Pepper Cat parts.
Well, they wanted you to trade. That was that whole thing. They incentivized trading, which is dumb.
Yeah, and it's a dumb way to do it.
The whole Pokemon gimmick.
It's like we were just talking about offline, I think it was, how the worst evolutions on Pokemon are the ones you have to trade to evolve. First of all, if you are doing that with like a stranger or something, you don't even get to see your Pokemon evolve.
Yeah, like kind of like NTR.
Yeah,
your Pokemon NTR.
Yeah, you'd think Pokemon was made by Koreans or something. I don't understand it. I think one of the reasons why I actually suggested one of the Medabots games is there's a big actual cult following. Every once in a while I'll find a Medabots thread and people will talk about, like, there was even a petition a couple years ago when I was really looking into it to get Nintendo to translate the Medabot 3DS games.
Yeah,
it's like, obviously they're not going to.
Petitions don't do anything.
But it did have a lot of signatures, which means if you did translate, probably one of the earlier ones too would work, but I really think there'd be a bigger audience if you did one of the 3DS ones. Like, if you did whatever the most recent one is, like, shoot, I'd help with that. That's pretty sweet.
There actually is, I think, an effort. I didn't check the dates on the posts or anything, but there's an effort to do 9, which is the last 3DS mainline RPG one.
What year did that come out? Was that 2017 or?
I want to say 15. It was right before a Girls Mission, based on my research.
So it's actually pretty old. It's one of the earlier 3DS games.
Something that's kind of neat. I haven't actually looked at them, but I've kind of read a bit about them. First 3 Game Boy ones also had like a spin-off game. Each one had its own spin-off game called like Parts Collect. That was more like a casualized version where I think it still had battles, but it was an easier way to get all the parts and stuff to try to play around in kind of more of a sandbox environment. I think you could, yeah.
That's so cool. That's a cool way to do it. Like, imagine if there was like a Safari Zone Pokemon game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be like.
Oh, you know what it is? And you're not going to like the comparison, but it's Pokemon Go compared to the new Pokemon Pikachu Go or whatever.
Oh, how similar. Yeah, I could see that.
So it's like a mix, even though they're like completely different games. I hope they're different games because the gameplay of Pokemon Go is not that great.
No, I think they're more like the mainline Pokemon games, battle system wise. In my wildest LARP fantasies, what I would want to do is say translate Medabots 3. If it's like easy enough, then I would just like do the parts collector maybe, and then maybe 4 and 5, which I think are also Game Boy Color. I don't know. Like I get really LARPy about this kind of stuff, but I probably won't even start it. Once I open a hex editor, I'm going to give up.
Yeah,
but
it's awful.
But it is something that I want to do.
Yeah. So
well, it's difficult too. It's not just tedious.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's part of it. It's not compelling work to sit down and edit the same file because like you'll be changing the same text for maybe 50 hours or something ridiculous. Like, it would be rough. Like translating it is one thing and like putting it into a script, but then just going through the monotonous, it's basically like typesetting a game is how it is, and it's like, wow.
But it's even harder because you have to find like all the locations of the text. I mean, first of all, you have to find even which hex values correspond to which characters on your like table, basically your alphabet. I mean, it gets really complex. I watched a few tutorials on a dude. He did the series on Pokemon games and how to kind of hack those. And I mean, the fundamentals would transfer over, I imagine, but a lot of it is so specific.
Seems really tedious. Now, if you're already doing that, well, what you could do is you could hack one of the splash screens to show our logo instead. In the credits, put a link to the podcast.
Maybe, but I feel like that's I don't know.
No, that's the end page. No. I'm totally on board for that. Like,
well, that's so far down the line.
Well, because the localizers have a splash screen for like other games.
True.
So yeah, that's
or at least the logo.
You'd be the American publisher. You know, the whole Western publisher. So
there you go.
International version. So yeah, so you deserve a splash screen that links to the podcast.
Well, you can't fluff my ego up yet. I haven't even started on it. All I've done is play the game a bit.
Well, if you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd be interested in playing like the older Game Boy ones. It's like really hard for me to go back to a lot of old games because there's just so many like convenience things that new games do that it's hard to go back.
If you like the GBA one, then it plays very similarly. Really, the only difference is the animations or the lack thereof. But other than that, it seems very similar so far, from what I remember of the GBA one.
I just downloaded Pokemon Crystal off the eShop the other day, and I started to play it. I just put my name in and then saved. But I'm thinking about it, and it's like, oh man, there's so many things about that game that are just so tedious. It's like, in Crystal, do you have the option? I know it's not in Red and Blue, but can you click on the ocean and it asks you if you want to surf, or do you have to go to Pokemon?
No, that works in Gold and Silver and Crystal.
It does?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Like, because I remember that was rough. And I know you can't press L and R to go to like different pages of Pokemon, like, you know, flip through menus and things like that.
Yeah,
and
no.
I know there's just a ton of stuff that's like really basically a killer for me not to want to play it. But I think I'll play through a little bit of Crystal. I just did Delta mission on Pokemon Omega Ruby, catching up on all my Pokemon.
You're
and
fiending
stuff
for some Pokemon.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe I'll go through Crystal. I used to have Crystal as a kid, but I lost it on a trip one time, and I was so sad.
It happens. But I guess to close off the Medabots, or Medarot, if you prefer the original Japanese, I guess to close that off, I did want to do a little manga minute kind of thing for the anime. I just wanted to talk about it real quick.
Yeah, I can talk about that. I was actually, depending on what you were going to say, I was going to say, well, I'm going to open up the Medabots again and talk about the anime.
So I'm like 8 episodes into it or something like that. So I'm really impressed, I have to say.
It is a great translation. The voice acting is great, and it's a great show. It really is a great show. It holds up really well. Like, I remember as a kid I liked it a lot. I actually rewatched it maybe in 2015, like all the way, and then they have a new modern updated Medabots with like better animation and stuff. It's not as good, but it's still pretty cool.
Same characters,
but it's kind of a reboot.
That's weird. I'm watching the dub, by the way, and I wanted to say that so many people give dubs, especially of that era, such a bad name, myself included. I don't prefer them generally, but a Digimon I think I prefer, and then this one now, it's so good.
It really is. Like, the dub is great. The Medabi casting is like the best. It really is. I don't know who that voice actor is, but he did some great things. That's one of the few examples of where they really went all out with the dub. Like, you can tell the voice actors like actually liked it, and they weren't like phoning it in. You know, it's I would put it on the quality of something like Ghost Stories, where, you know,
but voice in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a joke, but Medabots is unironically a good dub.
And they have so many good lines. I wrote down 2, but there were tons that I didn't have the presence of mind to write down. One of them is like the gym teacher's talking to the main kid. He says, "Drop and give me 20," and then he says, "Sure, got change for a 50." It's like just stupid little jokes like that. I really love that. I like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like there was a fisherman talking to, like, he had like an octopus Medabot who would like fish for him, and he's like, "You know the deal. You scale and gut them, and I eat them." It's like, how does that even make sense? But it's a good anime, and there are points of it where I swear, I think the term is sakuga, where like they up the animation quality for like just a few second blips here and there. It's like off-putting, in fact, how good some of the like little scenes are here and there.
Some of the fight scenes, like even later on, well, it's because, you know, they use their budget for that, you know.
Well, no, it's mostly not the fight scenes. I find the fight scenes to be kind of dumb, but it's just like the way like somebody will just like move around a corner if they're sneaking or something, or just like turn their head, or just like some emote that they'll make. Those are the points that I've noticed where they're cranking it up to 60 FPS somehow, and I don't know, they're just busting out more frames, I guess.
That's pretty interesting. Overall, even just the story of the anime is pretty cool. It's got enough little mystery things and world building things that I always think that a hallmark of a good story is like not so much the railroad plot that you're supposed to go on in the completely linear path that they're trying to tell, but to me is if the world is interesting enough that there's like more things I want to know about it. Like if there's a mystery, I can't think of a Medabots example, but I always want to know more about how daily life is with Medabots. Or, you know, it's like they bring them to school. Actually, Little Badlers did this well, which is something I had a problem with Custom Robo, which is a very similar game. But with Custom Robo, when you would fight, I'm like, why wouldn't you just go in real life and shoot the person? Because they were fighting like terrorists, like world-ending terrorists. Yeah,
like Team Rocket.
Well, here's the thing. It's like with Pokemon, makes sense because a dragon can still kill you as a human. So it's
Okay,
like
yeah,
Pokemon are generally stronger than humans for the most
Yeah.
part. And if they're not, they have psychic. They could hypnotize you, especially if you're reading the Dojinies. But with Custom Robo,
The Dojinies, like some kind of Italian.
the Dojinies. With Custom Robo, it's basically the same type of game, the thing like that, but they explain it like the Custom Robos are so strong that if you don't fight it with another Custom Robo, they can like bust down a real life door. And they're tiny. They're like the size of like
They're
smaller than
action
your phone.
figures, basically.
Yeah. Well, they're smaller than that. They're
okay.
like the size of gacha balls or like
They're like Ninderoids.
something like that.
Or what's the other one? Pop dudes or something?
Oh, pop vinyls?
Is that what they're called? No, those little action figures with the humongous heads.
Yeah, it's pop vinyls.
Well, that doesn't sound right, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm just thinking Pop Team Epic because we're in the
Me too. Yeah.
we're in the anime mode. But they explain it with custom or with little battlers in the sense that it's like you need to stop it with another robot because somehow these things the size of your phone will like actually kill a human.
But yeah, every little kid has one. See,
Yeah.
that part gets weird.
Well, I actually, like, in Little Battlers, I only played maybe an hour of it, but it's like his mom doesn't want him to get one because she knows it's dangerous and, like, people have died with them. So, I mean, it's, like, still, like, a thing. It kind of gives me things, it's like most kids growing up these days, these little Zoomers don't know what it was like, but we didn't have cell phones growing up. Your parents would be like, what do you need a cell phone for? Like, you're in middle school. Like, I never wanted a cell phone. I was late to getting a smartphone because I didn't think I would need it, but then I got it. I'm like, oh, God, I can't imagine not having internet everywhere I am.
Same here. I got my first real cell phone around the time I entered college, and it was like a flip phone. Couldn't do anything with it. And I was like, what do I need this for?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was similar to that where it's like everybody wants him. Yeah, and I think in Medabots in the anime too, he doesn't get his right away. Like they're expensive or something, he couldn't afford it, and he finds Medabi. Is that how he gets it?
He found the medal like a river. You know the classic anime river.
Yes.
The one with the slopes on either side.
Well, it's like a drainage bank.
That's what they look like. I don't know what they actually are. That could be it though.
A riverbank.
Yeah, but he finds the metal there, and then he buys like cheap old parts, and that's what he makes Medabi out of.
So with Medabots, if you don't know, they're like little toy robots. They give you a skeleton, and you put little parts on them. Yeah, but then I was going to talk about the metal.
I see.
They have like AI, but the AI is built into like a little medallion.
That's like the soul.
Yeah, of the Medabot, and they have little personalities and things like that.